Thank you, councillors. What I want to know is, why have there not been man-on-the-moon headlines about the fact that currently in the Auckland region, according to the 2013 census, there is over a city's worth of empty private sector houses. Over 22,000 houses are sitting empty in the Auckland region. They obviously have not been bought to be occupied by the buyer, or they wouldn't be empty. They have not been purchased to be rented by those who bought them, or they would not be empty. 22,000 empty houses in the Auckland region, while other Aucklanders are living in garages, caravans, cars, or sleeping in Queen Street on the street. How on earth is that right? And that was from an Auckland Council report on the census. So we have a housing crisis with 22,000 empty houses, and then we have this bubble and fluff myth that there's an extra 1 million people coming to Auckland, which I challenged in a petition which was accepted by the Social Services Select Committee and resulted in an inquiry. And the report of that Social Services Select Committee said, the Social Services Committee has considered petition 2011-64 of Penelope Mary Bright, requesting that Parliament decline to proceed with the Housing Accords and Special Housing Areas Bill until the lawfulness of the reliance of Auckland Council on the New Zealand Department of Statistics high population growth projections instead of their medium population growth projections for the Auckland Spatial Plan has been properly and independently investigated, taking into consideration that both Auckland Transport and Watercare Services Limited have relied upon medium population growth projections for their infrastructural asset management plans. We have heard and received evidence from the petitioner, but note that the matters she raised have been addressed publicly by the Auckland Council in statements posted on its website and issued to media. The Auckland Council's Chief Planning Officer has said that while Auckland may not grow by 1 million people by 2041, the high growth projection, Auckland Council is preparing for it. The city has historically met the high growth projection, and therefore it is therefore prudent for the council to plan accordingly. He said that the city needs to be prepared for, and infrastructure needs to be able to cope with growth. He pointed out that the unitary plan, which is part of the Auckland Spatial Plan, sets out only rules for development. We understand that actual development would be undertaken only in response to demand. Regarding the use of alternative projections for higher and lower growth scenarios, we note that the Council's Chief Planning Officer has also said it is prudent for the Council to provide for the highest likely population growth and at the same time to be cautious to avoid overinvestment, etc. The Mayor of Auckland has also said that using the high growth projection was the appropriate thing to do, and the council should not be too conservative in their assumptions for population growth. We consider that the response to this issue provided by the council appears reasonable and therefore have no matters to bring to the attention of the House, and that was signed by the Deputy Chair, Melissa Lee. My response to that was, I didn't ask whether or not it was reasonable, I asked whether or not it was lawful. Under the law, spatial planning must be evidentially based. I said to the MPs by telephone conference, I said, what is the point of you MPs making the law if you do not follow it yourselves? Now, what concerns me is that this bubble and fluff extra million people coming to Auckland has generated the special housing areas, which has acted in Tamaki as the means not to regenerate communities, but to dislocate and ruin, wreck, put a bulldozer through communities as state housing tenants are being forced out. Now we have the Tamaki Redevelopment Company, which morphed from this project that was supposed to help make things better for state housing tenants and improve their houses, blah, blah, which some tenants picked straight away was actually going to be a form of ethnic cleansing of tenants, and they have been absolutely right. That is the situation. Who is going to benefit from this? The transfer of 2,800 Housing New Zealand properties to the Tamaki Redevelopment Company, those property developers who've been licking their slobbering chops over that prime real estate in Tamaki for quite some time. And where it gets really dodgy is that the question is how many National Party MPs are investing in property in Auckland. Because there is a register for pecuniary interest for MPs, these things can be tracked. How many of the select committee members on the Social Services Select Committee that said it was reasonable to accept high population growth projections are ones who are investing in Auckland property? Where is the register of pecuniary interest for you elected representatives, for the boards of CCOs, for executive staff of Auckland Council and CCOs when it comes to property? How can we follow the dollar and make sure that you people are doing things in a way that benefits the public majority unless we have this transparency? And I'm letting you know that is one of the things that I will be doing is I will be seeking a law change so there is a mandatory requirement for local authority, elected representatives and staff and CCOs, boards and executive staff to complete a full mandatory register of pecuniary interest so we can see that there isn't nest feathering going on and these changes that are happening to the Auckland region being pushed by people who are actually not, in my view, working in the interests of the public majority. And as I finish, I'd just like to advise you, I was contacted by Parliament yesterday and I have been invited by the Local Government and Environment Select Committee to give a 20-minute presentation at Parliament next Thursday to my petition calling for an urgent inquiry into the alleged failure of the local government commissioners to carry out due diligence and exercise their statutory duties arising from the Local Government Act regarding the Wellington draft reorganisational proposal. And I will be giving facts and evidence about the proposed efficiencies that this forced amalgamation, this Auckland super city, how, well, use the vernacular, how it has been basically a crock for the public majority. Thank you.
Thank you, Penny. As usual, if there are questions, Councillor Casey, there are questions.
Penny, what was the report that you quoted from at the beginning about the 22,000 houses lying empty? You said it was an Auckland Council report?
Yes. What I will do, Councillor, I have a spare copy here which has got the links to these reports and I request that it be appended to the minutes.
Thank you.
Yeah. So it's here. Okay.
Just, councillors, on that issue, under the Auckland Housing Office and in conjunction with some of the other parts of council, we are working really hard on, and hopefully to the next Auckland Development Committee we'll have an update on all of the wider issues around the affordable housing challenge, some of which are ours, some of which are governments, some of which are the community sector, some of which are private sector issues, and as yet council has absolutely no leverage around ensuring that people live in people's investment properties. But the point that Ms Bright makes is a very, very good one. 22,000 houses standing empty should not be of no concern to us. Question, Councillor Wood?
Well, does this include batches of seaside batches that people have, their second home?
not to my understanding, but the link to the report is there. But it's just, to me, unbelievable when we have all this talk of housing crisis, that figure is not out there.
We're not a star on this kind of politics bureau, are we? I mean, we can't do
Okay,
much about
Councillor
it.
Wood, that's not a question.
What is it?
We can't start discussing a report that we don't have in front of us. Ms Bright has raised the issue. It's an entirely valid issue, and I think as we talk about our affordable housing, all the challenges around homelessness, emergency housing and affordable housing, it's a really valid issue to include in the discussion, and I'd like us to do it when we've actually got it in front of us.
If she comes back with any further information, can we be circulated?
We absolutely will. We'll make sure the links are circulated. And just, Penny, to make sure that you're aware and it's on the public record, councillors do fill out a register of interest. Now, it isn't mandatory, I understand. Some of us do. There are still councillors who don't, but it would be absolutely appropriate, I'm sure, if members of the public ask for that, for it to be publicly available, as the public have a right to understand what we own and what we don't own. So.
Well, yeah, and interest. And the other thing, last point on that, there's been a huge fuss internationally about beneficial ownership of trusts, because you know, how can things be hidden so they're not as transparent as they could be? Beneficial owners of trusts, in my view, should very much be part of that. Just letting you know.
Sadly, yeah, legislation not ours. We're the subject to it, but
you need some legislation.
Go for it on that one. Yep. Thank you. I'll move that Ms Bright be thanked and seconded by Councillor Casey. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Thank you, Penny. We now move on to members. I thought it would be useful at this stage. We've got under local board input, we've got our chair and members of the Waitakere Rangers local board to talk on the Pataroa Road tree, and then I'm going to move that we bring the item forward so that we hear from, thank you Councillor Walker, that we hear from our local board and then discuss the item. So Sandra and team, welcome.